Okay, here we go.
Test, 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 test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley. We were kind of riffing on what to do with the show this week. And I sent you something. I go, what about just 3 questions?
3 questions.
3 questions.
It reminds me of something you used to do on the air with Sports Radio Live. You did 3 stars.
Oh, the 3 stars. Yeah, that's right. And it was a combination of, what's going on in culture and sports. 3 questions, though. I thought, okay, we'll eat up some time there because one of the things I've always learned with us is we can talk.
We know how to talk to each other.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And it's kind of interesting because
I feel on the spot for some reason.
No. Because, you know, if you could, because you've already kind of done this, but
okay.
So let's say if you had to oil change your life and completely change your career, and let's say you're not doing it in front of a mic, what would you do?
Okay. So you're saying if I can't work with a microphone,
what would you change it to?
I'd really love to be a travel blogger. I'd really love to get paid to talk about what I love about travel. I would love for somebody to say, hey, Mandee, here's $300,000 a year. We're going to send you all over the world. We're going to send you to the best restaurants. You're going to stay in the best accommodations, and we're going to pay you to be sparkly and charming and tell us all the fabulous things about why people want to eat at these restaurants and stay here and what it's like, what your experience is like. I would love for somebody to pay me to do that.
And you could do it from Greece.
I want all over the world. Yeah, all over the world. I mean, I'd love to, maybe specialize in Western Europe and the Mediterranean. Sure.
Okay.
But, I'd go other places if they want me to. I'd go to Australia and New Zealand.
Sure.
I mean, I'd go to Eastern and Central Europe. I'd love to go to Budapest, Prague.
I've heard that Prague is really terrific.
I have to have friends that have been there. I have a friend that lived there for a while.
Australia. Have you ever been? You know anybody that's been to Australia?
I do. My friend Lindsay literally, physically ran into Chris Hemsworth in Australia. Thor.
Ran in? Okay.
Physically bumped into him and had a nice interaction with him. He is a lovely human. He was very kind to her. He was like, I'm so sorry. Let me help you.
Is that your bicep?
Oh my gosh.
Yikes.
I think I would have just fallen all over myself had I run into Chris Hemsworth in Australia.
Me too. I mean, hi Chris.
Yeah. And I think she was cool, calm, and collected. However, when she met Ed Sheeran, she fell apart.
Where did she meet Ed? Was she overseas?
No, she was with me in Dallas.
Oh.
We got to meet him together. It was really special.
Oh, cool.
I know, totally sidebarred. That was not, I would love to interview celebrities too if I had the opportunity to just like documentary style.
Yeah.
Especially I like actors and musicians specifically.
Aren't they fascinating?
They are, because they're humans. They have their own set of flaws. They have their own set of frustrations.
Anxieties,
difficult childhoods oftentimes.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'd love to just sit and talk with them as well. I mean, maybe I need to just be the next Oprah. I mean, maybe that's the career change I need to make.
I remember reading about, as Jason Sudeikis was getting into Lasso, he would talk about his Saturday Night Live times, and he would get incredibly anxious. And Lauren would say to him after about 5 years, "You're going to be fine. You can stay as long as you want."
Wow.
But we all get, and that's the other thing about listening to celebrities that perform is they all get anxious about the performance, and they all generally maybe don't like to see what they do. It's amazing to hear,
or especially not in public. They don't like to go to a crowded theater and watch what they do with other people. A lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to hear the amount of actors when they're asked about a movie. And they'll say, I've never seen the finished product. I've seen rough cuts and that's it. You know?
I feel like that's a really common thread, which I get. I mean, as somebody that is a performer, whether it's on stage or it's, I don't always listen to I edit podcasts. So sometimes, I listen to the product in production oftentimes, but I don't necessarily always listen to every single episode totally finished.
Well, it's one of those things to where, I edit this thing. So, when I'm editing, you have to get really dispassionate. I mean, at least I do when I hear me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can listen to. I can run the computer, so to speak, because there's sometimes at the radio station, I'll run the hour that I'm on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll listen and go, okay, good, fine. Oh gosh, terrible or whatever. But because I still stockpile audio occasionally.
Oh, well, yeah.
Just in case.
I feel like actors probably have some kind of like film resume or whatever
sure.
pieces. But again, it's probably limited like scenes rather than watching necessarily the entire full product. So I get that.
I would think that if you were a starter actor, well, have you known anybody that's been a starter actress, like actor or actress, somebody that's maybe they're a member of SAG, they're trying to break in. How do they do that? Do they do like in radio where, we have 2 to 3 minutes?
I have a friend that does that.
Yeah?
Is in that work. We could probably ask him to come on the show. Actually,
Okay.
He does voice work too as a voice talent actor. Actually, the friend Lindsay that ran into Chris Hemsworth, it's her brother Kyle.
Oh.
Oddly enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Kyle's done some work. He was in a film that's on Apple Plus. I'm trying to remember what the name of the film was. I think it was Ready or Not or something like that. I'll have to look it up.
Sounds like a rom-com.
It sounds like one, but it's not exactly one. It's more like a buddy comedy with some tragedy mixed in. And he's just got a bit part in it.
Oh, okay.
But he's not like the lead actor. But it's a funny part that he's in. Chuck, let me ask you the same question. What would you do if you had to not be in radio any longer? If you had to change careers or if you wanted to change careers, what would that opportunity be?
Well, there's kind of two levels. When I was a kid,
yeah,
I was fascinated with water, like oceans.
Really?
I loved the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau. I loved ocean. I thought oceanography was fascinating. I thought submarines were fascinating. I've toured one submarine. It was down in Galveston, one of the World War II subs. Claustrophobic. so I don't know so much about that.
Well, there's a pretty big contrast there, right?
Yes.
In the concept of the ocean, which is massive and vast.
Yes.
And then a submarine, which is like a tiny metal oblong tube
in that massive sea. And and I would be the guy too, and I do this and go, wait a minute. I'm in this tube and there's all that. And no, that would probably drive me nuts. But that was when I was a kid. And I was fascinated by that world and people that would do that world.
Yeah.
Even now it's like, the director of the Terminator, James Cameron.
Yes.
When he did I think he's still doing, he was doing Titanic dives. Until recently, he had the mini sub that he would go down with. I don't know if they actually went down or it was maybe like like an AI sub. I'm trying to, remote control sub, but still, I find that fascinating. But it's hard to say. I will say this about being in broadcasting. I mean, I made the transition about 10 years ago from music radio to then I was sports talk, and I was producing that, which it was the funnest, best, happiest time ever. But the station I was at, we didn't get sales, and we didn't have any ratings, but my goodness, we were happy.
Yeah, you had a lot of fun.
We had a wonderful time.
Yes.
And then I transitioned, back to the station I'm at doing, working in a newsroom, putting stories together, making sure that they're correct. It's as I always like to tell the news guys, I give you the groceries, but you put the dinner together. But it's fascinating. I as I've gone along, I've got kind of I don't want to say a news nerd or a news snob, but I'll listen to things and go, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and why? And for network stuff, even go, no, this is like, I'll say, this is 25 seconds of BS with a reporter putting his name on it. No, no, we won't do this. I like being in news.
You do?
I do. It's a nice transition. But I think anybody that's still in broadcasting would probably say, I like doing what I'm doing as long as I get to do it.
I see that. I mean, I'm sort of still in broadcasting. I'm in podcasting, and then I do the TV gig a little bit.
And that is it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not news-ish. It is, but it's not.
But it's sort of like
It's more like client relations news.
Wouldn't you call it lifestyle? Yeah, because if you were if you were putting your articles online and they had to menu it on the TV station, it would be lifestyle.
Yeah, it would be lifestyle. And I do enjoy it. It's just a totally different animal. It's not live. It's never live. It's all pre-recorded. Maybe made to look kind of like it's live.
Yeah.
But, it's just different. I mean, my world is so different now. I mean, I loved broadcasting for when I did it, but it's like, I never did news. I don't, you tried to recruit me once to come work with you and do news, and I appreciate
the dark
that.
Side.
Yeah, I know, but honestly, it feels a little bit like the dark side to me. And I think I told you this when you asked. Like, I take things on. I can be a bit empathic.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I'm surrounded by a lot of frustrated emotions, which news evokes a lot of frustration, it invokes a lot of anxiety for me because difficult things are happening, frustrating things, conflict.
You're not talking about in the shop, but you're talking about in the news universe.
Talking about the actual news universe. And so if I'm talking about things consistently throughout the day that evoke conflict, which that's most of what's reported on, right? We don't typically report on like babies being born, No, and that's not normal.
That's like if I have 20 stories, there's 5 of them that are going to be that.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's something to where I just find it fascinating and interesting because 20 years ago, my wife would say to me, "You should do news." And I would just laugh her off. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, well, you're insane.
Yeah.
But, you look at things and say, well, if I still want to play the game, maybe I need to do another position.
Mm-hmm. And I'll never say never. I mean, I could end up one day being in a news booth. I just don't feel like now it's the right fit for me. I'm really enjoying being an entrepreneur and making my own schedule.
Yeah.
I will say that. I do a lot of different things freelance and piecemeal those together. And I appreciate that challenge and I like it a lot.
I had a couple of years between the radio gigs where I was doing just voiceover work for a company. And there was one year where I got to transition and do it from home. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I mean, I could sit there and do things at night where I could do a lot of rough voiceover stuff at night and then do all the cutting, like 6 a.m. with a cup of coffee. And I like that instead of versus, you had to, unless, being in their shop at maybe 7:30, and, somebody says, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
I just like, I like that to be able to do my own hours like that. That worked really, really, really well.
Yeah. So transitioning to question number 2, I'm going to put you on the spot first. I want to know who your favorite superhero is and why.
And it kind of dovetails kind of off what we've been doing. Captain America.
Oh.
And Captain America, and specific.
Solid choice.
Yeah. And I think because it represents transition, represents change, represents change for a person who's willing to do this, to get to this, to serve that. I find that fascinating. Mm-hmm. And in the Marvel universe, the modern Marvel universe, I think the Captain America movies are the best. Really,
they're very strong.
They're very strong.
Chris Evans, man.
Chris Evans is great. I think it's not Civil War, but oh gosh, it's the Captain America movie with Robert Redford, and he plays
Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier
with Bucky Barnes as the villain.
And they have all of this stuff where they have like the cabal of evil people from representing countries and stuff. And I thought it was a really, really strong story, and I liked it a lot. It was one of the few Marvel movies I thought where they didn't have the 45-minute fight scene, which is my big. It's like, okay, you're going to win. Cut it down for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I like that because it represents not only change, but somebody who's saying, I'm willing to change to do this, and you think about that on some level, and we've talked about that in regards to us.
Yeah.
I'm willing to change to do this. Maybe you're doing sales. Maybe you're doing on-air TV. I'm doing news. But if I want to stay in the game, I'm willing to change to do that, and that's what I like.
I like that.
Are you going to go for Wonder Woman? I'm just kidding. That would be the.
Did you read my mind? I honestly prefer Marvel over DC in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But there are a few things I really love about Wonder Woman. Number one, she gets Chris Pine, so I'll take that all day long.
I like Chris Pine.
I love Chris Pine. I think he's fabulous. But also, I just really appreciate the strength, the courage, the confidence that she embodies.
Yeah.
And I am a feminist, and I'm going to embrace that term because I know it carries a lot of weight, and some people think that that means you're angry. I'm not angry.
No.
But I do think that she gives an opportunity for women to see someone that is strong and beautiful, and someone that is willing to fight her own battles, someone that is, willing to speak up for what's right.
Sure.
And, willing to work with men as an equal, but she's also capable of doing things on her own and doing it in like a classy and courageous, strong, brave, bold way.
Not to take
too obvious?
Not to take a huge left turn because you said Chris Pine,
yeah.
right? And so he has written and directed something called The Pool Boy.
Okay.
And so he's let his hair down to his shoulders. The gray beard has grown out. And they were talking about it because they've done the red carpet. And they said he showed up kind of in character because imagine if somebody took a bunch of plaid type cutoffs and shirts and everything and put them in a gun and just blew it on him. Yeah, he just he looks eccentric to say the least. But it's a movie where you kind of go, well,
oh my goodness,
I may just try this to take a look at it.
I'm looking at some images of him online as this character.
Yes, yeah.
I prefer him in Wonder Woman. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and I'm sad that they're not going to do Star Trek. I don't think the next one because it's gone from where.
Well, he's not 25 anymore.
No.
He was great in those roles, though. I really enjoyed him in Star Trek. So, yeah, I guess I'd go with Wonder Woman, specifically the whole Gal Gadot situation, the more recent movies. But in general, storytelling-wise, I typically prefer Marvel if I had to just throw that aside in. Because I also love Captain Marvel.
Yes.
I mean, I think Brie Larson. In fact, I watched it the other night. Brie Larson's fabulous in that role. I loved all of the music in it.
Yeah.
I grew up in the 90s, so that's probably part of it.
One of my favorite actors, I've developed an affinity for him, is Ben Mendelsohn.
Oh, man. Yeah, he's great.
And he plays bad so well. And I can't remember. There was a limited series on, I can't remember what it was, but he was bad, and he was good bad. Mm-hmm. And I always get fascinated on these guys that play, and women who play bad characters. And then you read about them, they're salt of the earth. They've got kids and wives. And, there's nobody that's like, well, he's a psychopath in real life too.
Yeah, he's in something right now that I really like, and I'm not caught up on it, but I've watched probably 6 or 7 episodes where he plays Christian Dior, the fashion designer. It's called The New Look.
I saw part of the first episode. It's
really interesting because it's these fashion designers, Christian Dior, Coco Chanel, and some others that were designing during World War II. And they were in Europe, specifically in Paris, during Nazi occupation. And so some of them ended up designing for Nazis because they were, in a situation where they had to make ends meet, pay bills. There may have been some underground espionage going on.
Oh.
Yeah, there's some really interesting, and I don't know how much of this is based on a true story and how much of it is actually true, but I will say that the series is fascinating. It's well acted. Ben Mendelsohn is Christian Dior. Juliette Binoche is Coco Chanel. It's really, really good. I know we've taken a total side note away from who your favorite superhero is and why, but so do you want to move on to question 3 or do you want to dig into...
It was Bloodline. That was the show that he was in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Bloodline. I remember seeing it. I go, this guy's bad and good.
And good.
And good.
He's good as Christian Dior. So if you're looking for contrast, I guess there's 2 for you for Ben Mendelsohn.
Okay. So when I was a kid, one of the earlier TV influences on me, in fact, I still reference it occasionally when I see gigantic contrast. It's The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
And so the question is, and maybe it's none, maybe it was something else, or maybe you were never scared of any of them. stronger constitution than me. But what would scare you? The witch, the flying monkeys, or the wizard? Or none?
You know, as a kid, I don't remember really what struck me the most as far as like being scared. Maybe I would say probably the witch, that laugh. I can't remember what the actress's name is.
Margaret Hamilton.
Yeah, man, she's got that witch laugh down, and it was really it was striking. I remember that. I remember that as a child, like hearing it. I like the trees scared me too when they started throwing apples at Dorothy and the Tin Man. Like that scared me. The lion in the beginning, like jump scare kind of stuff when you're a kid.
Sure.
But I'll tell you, I have a different take on Wizard of the Oz before we get to what scared you. This is not scary, but it was a little trippy. Back in the early 2000s, in the early days of the internet, stuff used to float around on forums. And somehow I stumbled on, or chain emails. Remember chain emails?
Yes.
Somehow I got one from somebody, I don't even remember who, that was a lineup with The Wizard of Oz and Pink Floyd's album Dark Side of the Moon.
I've heard about it.
Start Dark Side of the Moon on the third roar of the MGM Lion.
Yes.
In Wizard of the Oz, and you turn the volume down on the movie and you turn the volume up on Pink Floyd, there is symmetry between this album, and it is weird. And I watched it late at night. I've never done drugs. Drugs are not my thing. If you do, whatever, it's cool. Just don't bring them around me. I may have been drinking alcohol like a wine cooler because I was about like 21 or 20 whenever I watched this together with my friend Jace. We went to Walmart at midnight, bought Wizard of Oz, bought Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah, in college.
That's commitment.
In college. And we turned these things on at the same time we watched it, and it was weird. But yeah, I've got to look it up because I was telling some other people about it this week, actually. It's so funny that we're talking about this because I haven't thought about it or talked about it in years. But I really should look up, because there's on the internet somewhere, I'm sure it still exists, all the ways that it symmetrically lines up of like Dorothy's walking along a fence post and somehow that's like in line with the lyrics in one of the songs from Dark Side of the Moon. And then later with the like, supposedly you see like a munchkin swinging from one of the trees, like that committed suicide on set at like this really weird moment. Yeah, it's so strange.
Wow.
There's all this weird stuff that supposedly happens when you sync those two up. So,
I wonder if it's on YouTube, the sync. I bet you it's on YouTube by now.
You know what? I hadn't even thought, because this was like this was before YouTube that I did this.
Yeah.
I think it was like probably 2004 or 3.
Because everything's on YouTube.
Everything's on YouTube now. We should probably look
It's like I dive into that occasionally. When you do the thing where you press YouTube just to see what comes up and you go, okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah.
It may be nonsense, but I'm checking it out.
So tell me, what scared you the most?
Oh, Margaret Hamilton.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, everything, the pointy chin, the makeup, which was green, and you'd go, if it's green, it's because she's dead. When she would laugh and position her, she would do her hands like claws. Yeah, it was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as a kid, and that's the good thing about something like that. It makes your imagination run wild. I was one of those kids to where my dad would say that when my mother was alive, she would watch movies, scary movies, put her fingers up like a picket fence, meaning she was watching them but not watching them.
But hiding behind the fingers. Yes.
And I think I was, and it was, I think I was a kid. I would do that too with, Wizard of Oz, Vincent Price stuff. Even to this day, there was things like, I think it was the Pit and the Pendulum. They did a remake. Maybe Netflix did it last year.
Yeah, The Fall of the House of Usher, where they did like several of the stories.
Fall of the House of Usher. And
yes.
And to this day, I mean, I remember seeing that being released and I went, oh, I wonder how it compares to the original.
This is weird information about me, but as a child, loved horror. Loved it.
But where was your line? Like when I'm saying,
child, like in 3rd grade, do you remember book fairs, scholastic book fairs?
Yeah.
I bought the top 10 tales of Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
That is way beyond a 3rd grader's reading level in so many ways. But I was at home like reading The Murders of the Rue Morgue and The Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if I read The Pit and the Pendulum. I know it was in there. I was reading these things.
Pit and the Pendulum is terrifying,
They're
even on
all
paper.
terrifying on paper. They're all. I remember the first one, the imagery that struck me.
Ushers.
That struck me the most, and I think it's because it was the first one in that particular book, was there was a detective investigating a murder.
That would be...
I think it's Murders of the Rue Morgue. I think
it's considered one of the first private detective...
stories?
Ever.
Yeah. He's investigating this story, and there's a woman stuffed upside down, naked in a chimney with her, like, hair bloodied and hanging out. I remember reading that at like 9 years old.
Did your mom or dad figure it out? Like, what are you reading?
Yeah.
This isn't Jack and Jill magazine.
No, here's what happened, or Archie's Comics, right?
Yeah.
No, I liked that, and then it turned me on to a book series. I think there were maybe 3 of them in total. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which they ended up making into a film like 20 years later.
All right.
Just a few years ago. I will not watch those movies because I read those stories, and they were really simple short stories. They were pretty dang graphic.
Yeah.
And they were super popular. I think they were new when I was a kid. I would read them before I would go to bed, and then I would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, to the point that my mom had to take all of these books out of my room, and she hid them. I finally found them, dug them out. Like, I got in so much trouble because I don't know what it was. I guess it was the adrenaline rush as a kid. I wanted to feel that thrill. No longer do I have that desire. Horror movies are not like the overall story. If there's a great storyline,
yes,
I'm still intrigued by it a little bit, but I don't like that feeling anymore, that anxiety feeling. Like, I guess I've seen too much of the world and know that these things really happen sometimes.
I always have
this. As a kid, I didn't know that.
If something's too violent, I always tend to go, no, stop right there. But, what is the line? I know when I was a kid, your age, there were, graphic, they would be considered probably graphic comics.
Yeah.
Eerie magazine.
Yeah.
And it was.
I feel like I've read Stephen King was into those, and that's kind of what turned him on to becoming a writer.
Probably.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah. But we were talking the other day at the station. It was something random that came up about the movie Stand By Me.
Oh,
and the movie Stand By Me was part of a novella, The Four Seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just terrific stuff. Of course, Stephen King, it seemed like.
Have you read any of his books?
Four Seasons, Salem's Lot.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever read Carrie?
No.
It's a great read.
Yeah.
It is. I got it for my 18th birthday, which also was 9/11.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that on a different episode someday. All the crazy, weird things that were given to me and things that happened that day. It was a strange day.
I remember seeing the movie Carrie, and it was one of those things, you see it and it's, bullying and the effects of bullying. And you kind of just, I remember feeling so horrible for Sissy Spacek. And, knowing it's a movie, of course, but still.
Yeah.
And then, of course, at the end, there's payback. I mean, how many times do you see a movie where there's something, there's bad happening? So, there's the bad guy doing the bad stuff. And you say, I want him to die badly. It was like, John Wick where the dog gets killed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm like sitting on my couch going, Rosanna, that man needs to die badly.
Yes. Yeah. Man, talk about Carrie's a great movie. It's a great book. There's jump scares in the book.
Yeah.
Like it's that well written. And I remember reading that late at night too. That was probably about the time that I finally gave up horror, was probably about my senior year in high school. And just now sort of putting the pieces together that may have related to 9/11.
Okay. And
the horrors that day brought about. It was just I think I just realized I didn't need to feel that way.
Sure.
Didn't need to put myself into that situation anymore.
Back in the 70s, CBS Radio Network would run CBS Mystery Theater.
Yeah. And
I remember as a kid, WCCO in Minneapolis would run it probably, I think, midnight or somewhere in there. And it was an actor named E.G. Marshall, very distinguished actor. He would narrate it. They were incredibly well produced. I have a stash of them on a thumbnail drive at home. And then, even earlier, there was a station in Oklahoma City and I'm forgetting the callers, but they would do Beaker Street. Beaker Street with Clive Clifford was kind of the earliest alternative album rock stuff.
Yeah.
In the morning, they do Beaker Theater about 2 a.m. And it was, I think it was probably the old radio shows from the 50s and 60s that were scary, like Arch Obler's Lights Out and stuff. And I would be the kid I'd have the transistor with my headphone on, and I would stick it under my pillow to listen. And I think I was successful maybe twice trying to stay awake. It just didn't happen. But even then I was fascinated with things that came out of the speaker.
Yeah.
Whether it was that, or I would sit in my dad's basement and listen to Minnesota North Star hockey. I'd, come back from the local rink and just listen. Mm-hmm. And the announcers would paint the pictures,
Yeah.
Which is what good announcers do.
Yeah, it's a gift, man. I don't know that I was ever really that good at it, but I never had to do it as far as sports or any kind of like full-on talk radio. I guess this is the closest thing I've ever come to talk radio.
Sure.
I think I sat in once maybe with you guys on Sports Radio Live for a segment years ago, and then I did
Was that with Brian?
Yeah, it was with Brian.
Yeah.
I don't think I sat in with Reed ever. I would have liked to, but I don't think I did. And then years later, because I think I had a non-compete, and I didn't want it to like, even as a guest, I didn't want to like muddy those waters.
Yep.
And then just like 2 years ago, Brian Houston was filling in locally on 92.1 for Bill Coates.
Yes.
And my friend Hunter Taylor, Dr. Hunter Taylor, wrote a book called Draw the Line about the Gilmer Buckeyes and their state championship, and Jeff Traylor and his success. And Brian was kind enough to invite me to come in and sit with he and Hunter on that episode. It was really special. Hunter's book is fantastic. Not trying to sell his book to you right now, but it's a great read if you love East Texas high school football. And during the time that Gilmer was kind of going on that run, I was broadcasting locally with the Lobos, the Longview Lobos. I was the person in the booth running the games.
Oh, okay.
Back at the station. I wasn't at the game, but I was making sure that the local commercials aired and that the feed was on the air.
Yeah.
It was one of like my initial jobs in radio was running football games. And so it was fun later to like come full circle as a broadcaster and do it again. Those were fun times. So I developed a real deep appreciation for East Texas high school football, even years after being like on the sidelines in the marching band.
When Brian and I worked together on Sports Radio Live, and Reed, for that matter, Reed Kerr, one of my duties would be on Friday nights to produce football games at the station, and I would put together like a 15-minute package at halftime to where people could get a hot dog, go to the bathroom. But I used to joke, I would say, I've been in radio for 30 some years and I'm back to being a board op. And I would joke about it, but it's
an important job.
You appreciate the fact that you have people that can sit there and punch the buttons and know what they're doing.
Oh man, we could do a whole show on the craziness from the booth that can happen. I mean, most of the time, I was chilling, listening to the game. Might even be reading a novel, just listening for the cue. Like if it wasn't a game that I was super interested in, I might be reading a novel in the background, just waiting for, and we'll be back with Lobo football in 1 minute or whatever.
Yeah, punch
the button, whatever, move on. But then there were the times that a crazy storm rolls through at the stadium and lightning's happening and I got to suddenly play music for, 45 minutes to an hour or whatever it is, or lightning strikes in Tyler and they don't know wherever they're broadcasting from that all of a sudden I have no electricity in the building and I got to reset the whole station.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a segment. They're crazy weather stories.
Yeah, we could do that too.
The other thing would be is, let's say you're listening to this as a listener, and maybe you have 3 questions.
Ooh, good. I like this.
That you want us to answer. You can contact us and
theunknownmorningshow@gmail.com. Shoot us an email, or what would be really, really, really cool is if you use the voice memos feature on your phone and you record the questions yourself. We'd love to hear your voice.
We can hear you.
Send that via email as well.
Maybe we could recruit you to do a segment because we'll drag anybody into it.
We'll make a star out of you.
That's right. That's right. This has been another episode of The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
podcasting,
gear,
and the gearheads that use the gear,
and making money with a hot mic,
and other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.